It's always a busy time in this state when it comes to politics. This morning, we're looking back at 2013. Here's Elizabeth Hopkins.
2013 certainly was not a quiet year for politics. John Kerry was named as Secretary of State in the Obama administration. Ed Markey winning his seat in the U.S. Senate. Mayor Tom Menino deciding not to run again. A new Boston Mayor, Marty Walsh, elected. So what will 2014 bring in the world of politics? Political historian and Boston University professor Tom Whalen joins us to discuss those issues and a whole lot more. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
First of all, let's talk about the governor's race, because Governor Deval Patrick is winding down his term. He's certainly done a lot of travel, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But when do you think the governor's race will start to heat up?
Probably this summer, and the closer we get to Labor Day. I think a lot of people are just politically tired out by all the special elections. But I think, around August, things will really pick up. And I think Julia Kayyem is really going to do well. I think she's going to end up winning the governorship.
What is it about, I mean, we're so far out, what is it about her that you think, yes, she's got it what it takes to...
Well, she has a charismatic personality, interesting background, Homeland Security, and I think people are just tired of the Democratic establishment candidates like Martha Coakley. She lost last time, embarrassingly, to Scott Brown, and I think they don't see her as a governor or a senator. They want her as Attorney General. And this will follow the pattern of recent Democratic statewide office candidates. Deval Patrick came from the outside, and so did Elizabeth Warren. And I think Kayyem, she will take on Charlie Baker in the general election, and Charlie Baker will have his lunch handed to him once again.
Well, it's very interesting that you say that, because Martha Coakley has so much name recognition, what's interesting to me is that as the entire field there is preparing to run their race, they may be preparing for Martha Coakley to go further than you expect that she does.
Right, and I think that's what they did last time. Tom Riley, the other Attorney General back in '06, everyone had him tabbed, going into the final, and they spent a lot of money in that race. Tom Riley was nowhere to be seen come the final, and allowed Deval Patrick to slip in, and the rest is history.
Well, let's talk about Deval Patrick, because recently he's been making a lot of trips, trying to drum support for the Bay State, try to bring jobs here, open up international relationships with Boston and beyond the entire state. But do you think that that really is to do what he says it is? It's really the agenda to bring in jobs, or do you think that he's kind of raising his political profile on an international stage?
I think all of the above. I think particularly now that he's exiting office, or about to, he wants to get his name out there, possibly even for a presidential run. People forget that, his name has been bandied about as a serious presidential contender in '16. And at the very least, he could get, for example, set himself up for Commerce Secretary, AG, but, he needs to keep his name in circulation. But he's had a disastrous last 12 months. And this whole Stephen Crosby fiasco on the Gambling Commission makes him look even worse.
Does that set us up? Obviously, you have your perspective, but does that set us up in any way for a Republican to take back the State House?
The only scenario I see that happening is if those independent candidates, McCormick and Falchuk, are able to siphon off enough votes from the Democratic base to allow someone like Baker to slip in, just as Cahill did last time to Baker's candidacy. And Falchuk, he's an interesting candidate. He has pretty much progressive Democratic views. So if he does well, that's going to be the detriment to the Democratic Party, and then Baker would certainly benefit and possibly even win.
Let's talk about the Republican Party. Let's talk about Scott Brown. What is his political future?
Oh, God. He's the Hamlet of the Republican Party. I think seriously that he is going to run for president, and with the intention of trying to be vice president. And think about it.
Wait, nobody runs for vice president.
Well, people do when you think about it, because he'll go in New Hampshire and he'll do very well there, and that will basically torpedo Chris Christie in New Hampshire. And if Christie loses New Hampshire, his whole campaign is gone, because the next primary coming up is South Carolina, and a conservative will win that. And I think you're going to have a conservative, very conservative Republican nominee, and to balance the ticket, they would look to someone like Scott Brown. And given the fact that Scott Brown basically gave the Conservatives a victory in New Hampshire, I think he'd be the top choice.
You got this whole thing lined up. Any surprises in 2014?
Well, I think the anti-casino initiative is going to make the ballot, and it's going to win. And the whole thing is going to be an utter mess. There's going to be all sorts of lawsuits and legal battles, and Stephen Wynn will fall asleep in it.
It'll be certainly very interesting to see what happens. Tom Whalen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.